Good evening. Thank you for joining me. Are you concerned with today's education that your child is receiving here in the United States? In recent years, you've heard in the news and seen in news articles where the United States is lagging behind in the education system with the rest of the world. In recent years, you've also heard and seen where the United States Congress and the White House have tried to redo the whole entire system. The whole entire system doesn't need to be redone. We just need to fix the main problems in our education system. Today, I'm going to go over the main problems of our education system, which are standardized testing methods, massive spending cuts, and old generation teaching techniques. The first point I'm going to go over is standardized testing methods. Today's teachers have to go by certain standards in the classroom. They have to teach certain material within a certain time frame that the federal or the state government set, and they have fast learners in their classroom and not so fast learners in their classroom, and they're having to teach the exact same way, and the not so fast learners aren't understanding material as fast as the fast learners, and unfortunately it becomes a disadvantage to those who aren't so fast at grasping the material, because the teacher has to move on and she can't go back and reteach it. It becomes a disadvantage to the fast learners at the end of the year, because they have to take a standardized test that all students should basically know for that grade to move on, and they're not able to show their full potential or what they know plus some on the standardized test. As summed up by Jennifer, an instructor at Alabama South University, and Ronald, a professor at Southern Mississippi University, in their recent article, Teaching to the Test, a Controversial Issue in Quantitative Measurement. They say many students have different teaching styles, or have different learning styles and testing styles, It is unreliable to use one standardized test to determine students' growth, their learning readiness for school, screening for disabilities, tracking, and grade retention. My next point is going to be old generation teaching techniques. Today's teachers are still trying to teach the way that their teachers taught to them. They're not as creative with the material, and they're not sure how to use today's emerging technologies and incorporate it into the classroom to help teach their students and progress the learning in their classroom. They have no creative, some of them have the old view of creativity, or they have no creativity at all. And some face large barriers to try to be creative when they want to in their classrooms, because they have to go through a whole bunch of red tape. For example, science teacher, she wants to teach how volcanoes erupt. Well, she first has to go to the school's administration. When she goes to the school's administration, she has to present to them what she's wanting to do, and then they have to decide and approve it. And then if they do decide and approve it, they tell her what she needs to do, how she needs to do it, and limits the creativity that she's able to otherwise show her students. In a recent article by Chainer from Michigan University, Leahy from Webster University, Coher from Michigan University, and Wolf from Michigan University, in their recent article, Technology, Learning, Creativity, and Design, the Habits of Necessary to Generate New Ways to Teach and Create a Career of Constant Change. They say many still don't appreciate the creative mindset. They don't have the necessary creativity for their own solutions in the classroom. They have the traditional concept of creativity that most teachers do, which is creativity belongs in music, art, poetry, and has little to do with social studies, math, literature, and science. And most teachers, they also say most teachers have that concrete thinking on math and science that no creativity belongs in there. My third and final point and big problem with today's education system is massive funding cuts. Today you have, in this economic world that we currently live in, you have schools that are currently having to shut down. You have schools that are losing massive amounts of funding, and they're having to do furlough days, can't pay their teachers as much, which in turn end up having to hire temporary teachers who have no motivation because they're not getting paid well. You have schools that are having to cut down on the meals or the nutrition value of the meals that they're feeding the students feeding the students that helps create learning ability. You also have schools that are having to go from 5 days to 4 days, and they're having to have, like I said earlier, have furlough days where they're sending students and teachers home, and in order to save on pay, save on providing meals, and save on electric and air conditioning and all of that. As summed up in the article, by the American Association of School Administrators in their 2012 report by Arison, the American Association of School Administrators conducts yearly surveys to gauge how districts are coping with the economic and budget cuts. Well, in their 2012 survey and report, they say 80% of administrators describe their districts as having inadequate funding. 4% reduced weeks to 4 days, as I was telling you earlier, and 10% anticipate that reduction in 2012-2013 year. In conclusion, I have presented you with the main problems in our current education system, which are standardized testing and how it disadvantages students, fast learners and not so fast learners, by having a standardized test at the end of the year that some may know and some may not know everything on there. I've also explained to you about old generation teaching techniques as being another problem, where you have some teachers who are not willing to, or who aren't willing or as creative and are not wanting to teach or incorporate new technologies in the classroom. I've also presented to you a big and major issue, which is massive spending cuts, which limits the amount of resources that our schools have to use to help students further their education. Now that I've presented this material to you, it is your turn and your responsibility to go out there and do something to help improve your child's education and get America's education system back on track and on top of the world once again. Thank you for joining me tonight, and you have a good evening.